business, right? I'm a dirt guy. So my broker's attitude was go and drive the entire city of Arcadia and Monrovia, and I want you to map every house that's under construction, every house that looks like it should be torn down, every vacant lot, every new construction, every multiplex. I want you to put them on a map, get every single phone number, and that's what you're going to do for the next, month. I didn't ever talk to a human being. And then when I was done with that first month, his next attitude was, I now want you to start in this neighborhood, and I want you to systematically walk and knock on every single one of these doors and say this script, hand them a flyer, and ask them if they or anybody they know is interested in buying, the routine, right?
Right.
And that progressed into, we're probably older than everybody else, Elgin, the world famous butcher letter, right? Send everybody a butcher letter now.
Right.
And when that all doesn't work, the excuse always falls back on the same thing. Well, you didn't obviously knock on enough doors. You didn't send out enough mailers. You didn't do... In this particular case, I'm not going to give out my broker's name. You can go read my resume, and I'm sure if you want to let it get back to Henry that I said this, I have no issue with it. He and I are on iffy terms as it is. I still think it's great for what he taught me, but the reality was it's your fault. You didn't do enough. You didn't listen to me. You. I always felt that it was my fault when things didn't work out. How do you overcome that in those early days, that it's not you, that it is... You and I know this now. It's not us. It's the system.
Right. Well, it's interesting is that I think that a lot of times what happens now, particularly, when you're young and you start and you're really hungry, which I was, failure was not an option to me. And again, though, being if you're someone that that was into sports and you were competitive and you had coaches and that, or maybe you played a musical instrument or something like that, actor, something where you had a coach and you had people that were really on you for whatever cases, that you didn't question your coach. You may not have liked it, but you didn't question it, so you just went out and you did it. If you had faith in that coach. So when at the time when I got into the business, I could not afford an additional coach. My coach was the broker. So my broker who was successful, and there were other people in the office that were successful, were doing what I was told to do. Now they were doing other things and quote unquote had their tricks of the trade that nobody ever wanted to share information back then. So you just kind of do what they told you. Now, was there a much more effective way of doing this stuff even back then? Absolutely. But I did not know any better. I was told that if you make X amount of calls and get X amount of calls, turns into X amount of leads, turns into X amount of appointments, is going to get you X amount of deals. So I went out and I did X amount of calls, X amount of et cetera, et cetera. And the formula, it didn't always work out, maybe somewhere in there or whatever the case. And, the old adage of you need to get through the no's to get to a yes, and you need 100 no's to get to... I used to keep track. I write it down.
Excuse my friend, and I got to say this, but this might turn people off who are listening to this live. We got a big crowd, or anybody who's watching the video replay, or anybody. And I apologize, I might have to bleep it for the eHustle. But isn't 1,000 no's bullshit? I'm calling it.
Yeah, you know what? I think that it is, in the sense that there's just a much better way of doing something. I don't think that you have to be in a situation to whereas you have to get all these no's. Obviously there's going to be some rejection.
Well, and that's why I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's why I bring it up. I think the rejection breeds the negativity, which breeds the heavy scripters, which breeds our perception, which turns everybody in the market against us. I think it is this vicious cycle, and I think it comes from we're sending, Well, I live in that kind of city, but I live in a town of Marines. I'm sending a bunch of Marines out armed with, paper airplanes instead of handguns.
Sure.
And I think that's what's real. We've got 1 million realtors. We've got another 1 million people who are investors. We now compete with Wall Street. We compete with China. We compete with India for buying our properties, right?
Right.
And what we're telling our agents to do is go out and be relentless. That is the only way to get a deal. And if I'm in my first 5 years of real estate, and you and I both know this because you've been a broker and I've been in the bit. We've been in the bit. We know this answer. We know what the turnover rate is in the first 5 years.
Right. Well, I've often said, you've heard me say this on other podcasts. That is that, real estate is way too easy to get into. It's way too easy to do nothing while you're in it, and then after you screw up or don't have success, it's too easy to just get out and go do something else. And if you're really going to treat your real estate profession like a business, then you have to actually be willing to invest what it takes to move forward, to learn, to craft your skills, and to be able to connect with people in a proper manner and in a manner that they want to be connected to. I mean, if you go open up a franchise and you go open up a business and you look at what it costs to do some of those things, and to have someone tell you that, okay, you're going to work 80, 90 hours a week, and you're going to do this for 5 years before you ever turn a profit, and you continuously will have people get into a business like that, then you'll have the same people or someone similar that will get into a business such as real estate and won't treat it as a business. And you think about it, this is a business where just by helping people, just by helping families, the abundance of a life that you can create for your own family it's enormous. It's enormous. It's an enormous opportunity. There's the vast majority of clients that you'll serve and families that you will help, the opportunity for advancement in your own business is going to be greater at whatever they're doing for a living. I mean, and that's including the doctors, the lawyers, etc., teachers, the garbage man. It includes all of those people. I'm not necessarily talking about if you happen to have a couple of CEOs or something like that of some major companies. I'm talking about the average person that you're going to deal with. If you are doing what you're supposed to do, your earning power is so fantastic that why wouldn't you invest in this business to learn it properly, connect with people, build some relationships, and just worry about servicing the consumer? Because if you do that, what's going to come for you is just going to be fantastic. It can't help but come. It's just a byproduct of you doing the right thing.
No, I completely agree. Well, let's make the turn right there. So the three most successful aspects of your business are obviously the things you do on the web, your referral base, and your direct marketing.
Yes.
Let's take them one at a time. For those of you who don't know, Elgin has, if you're listening on my podcast, he has an extraordinary podcast called the eHustle. All you got to do is go to Elgin Walker Podcast or eHustle Podcast. What did I set it up as? eHustle Podcast. eHustle Podcast. Sign up and you can hear from Elgin each and every week. I recommend for sure listen to it if you are a homeowner or an agent. It will be life-changing for you. That's content, right? And what you do with your content is you put it everywhere. But the thing that I see you do mostly, which I don't think people do correctly with Facebook, you are socially active and engaging on Facebook instead of just telling me, hey, here's a picture. Has that been beneficial for your clients?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a for me personally, and I've taken over, as I mentioned earlier, I was doing the cold caller. I was a cold caller. Then I worked expireds for somebody others. And, there's still a place in my business for that. It's just not the big piece. It's not a big piece of the puzzle. And I took the same tenacity in making 250 calls a day to working the social media platform and working my database and some other stuff in the same manner. So for instance, where it be at Facebook and Facebook is my main source of that, you literally are basically in front of however many people that you have from your, so quote unquote, your friends list and what's on your business page and whomever they're friends with, etc. You're constantly now being able to be in front of people in the same manner for free or to cheap, depending upon how you're doing your Facebook marketing. There's no way that I could knock on enough doors, make enough phone calls, do any of the type of stuff like that that I can do in a 30-minute time frame on Facebook. You know, with having 3,000 friends and, 9,000 plus people on my business page, every time that you're doing something, you're basically engaged with people. At that particular point, though, as you're building relationships, people want to, again, they really want to, in my opinion, they really want to know you as well. They don't necessarily, they want information, and all that stuff's on my business page. They want information, and you can, you're my listings and stuff. You can go through all that stuff. They also want to know you're a real person. They also want to know about real life things. They also want to know about you. So, that has been very beneficial to me. And plus, it's called social media. So that means you should be social. Is that you actually, again, reach out and talk to some of your friends, via social media. Take some of those relationships offline, build real relationships with them, and you'd be amazed. I'm amazed at how many people share stuff that I do and say. I mean, like I'm really somebody. I mean, you said some nice things about me, Lee, and I appreciate that. I'm just another dude talking, and anything like else with anyone else. I try to be very sincere with what I have to say. But I'm amazed at people that when I'll post the podcast stuff, that they'll share it on their pages, or they'll share the listings, or they'll share a quote that I've had to say, stuff like that. But it really not only helps build your brand, but it also just gets people to maybe trust you a little bit more, and when they have a need, they'll either reach out to you or they'll tell a friend of theirs, hey, check out this guy and listen to what he's saying. He might be able to help you. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the way I want my business to build now versus the way I was building it before.
No, I agree. And I'm sorry to cut you off. I thought you were...
Well,
how important is congruency to who you are, to the message you put out when you're on social media? Does it need to be as transparent as a face-to-face?
I believe so. I mean, and I believe that to a degree. Now, there's certain things, everything don't go on Facebook. Some people use Facebook. You should be true to yourself, but you don't have to put everything that's going on in your relationship. This is my opinion, in your relationship, and the day you hate your husband or your wife or your boy.
Should I qualify at this moment and go, yeah, I think I know about that one a little too much.
So, listen, I'm not singling out anyone.
Really? David Bartels is listening to this right now, and I'm sure if he could stick a thumbs up or a big smiley face up, I'm surprised he hasn't texted me on that statement alone. But I also get that I live a public life, right? So who I go out with and what I do, I'm a little different than everybody else. I get, as somebody pointed out to me, I'm a semi-public figure, and I don't even think realtors get this. You are a semi-public figure.
Absolutely. Well, I get the way I look at it is, I guess an easier way to quantify that is, I don't want to put, and I tell my kids this, and some of them listen and some of them don't, is that you don't want to, I personally don't want to put something out there that, if I put something out there, it's something I'm going to stand by, and it's me. And if somebody either calls me on it or they bump into me at the supermarket or something like that, and, they bring up something, it's not going to be something that I'm going to, quote unquote, be retracting from, coming back from, and that. And there's just certain things, in my opinion, at least for me personally, that are just that. They're personal, and I'm not going to go into that type of detail with people that I don't necessarily know really well. That's just my own personal thing on that. But now, also that being said, that there's no way, in my opinion, without spending lots and lots and lots and lots of